This is the John Steigerwald Show on AM 1250 and FM 92.5. The Answer.
How's this for a headline? University admits harvesting kidneys from unborn babies while their hearts are still beating. And do you know which university that is? Pitt. Yep. University of Pittsburgh. The Center for Medical Progress is responsible for that story, and the founder of that organization, David Daleiden, joins us now. David, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
So let's get right to that headline, David. Who at Pitt is admitting that they are taking kidneys from unborn babies whose hearts are still beating?
Sure. So this is a statement that was released to news media in the past 2 days by the vice chancellor for communications of the University of Pittsburgh. This is in response, Pitt trying to explain themselves after my organization, the Center for Medical Progress, and the organization Judicial Watch, which some of your listeners may be familiar with Tom Fitton. We were able to obtain from a Freedom of Information Act request of the National Institutes of Health, we were able to obtain the original grant applications that the University of Pittsburgh submitted to the NIH for taxpayer funding to run what they were describing as a distribution hub for late-term aborted baby body parts, specifically for kidneys and bladders and other organs from the genital urinary system. And in that grant application, Pitt advertised to the NIH as part of why Pitt would be such a great location to run this mass distribution hub for baby body parts. They said the reason you should choose Pitt is because we will use labor induction abortions as one of our procedures for obtaining fetal tissue. So labor induction abortion, not the normal dismemberment procedure. This is just straight up inducing labor on the pregnant women so that they push the babies out. And then they also said that at Pitt, they would take affirmative steps to minimize the ischemia time of all of the body parts that they were harvesting. And they said that they would record the start of the warm ischemic time, and they would take steps to minimize the warm ischemic time based on what the research customers needed. Now, ischemia time, this is a standard medical definition. These are definitions provided by the National Institutes of Health. Ischemia time, or ischemia, is the loss of blood supply to an organ. And when the University of Pittsburgh was asked by multiple news outlets, what the heck is going on here, they replied and said, oh, yeah, ischemia, in our application, ischemia means the time after the tissue collection procedure is completed. So ischemia is a scientific term. It has a scientific meaning in these NIH grant applications and everywhere else. Ischemia means the loss of blood supply, or the loss of blood flow when an organ is disconnected from circulation. And Pitt has been saying to news media now for the past 2 days that ischemia doesn't start in these cases until after they've actually harvested the kidneys. So if the kidneys aren't losing their blood flow until after they're done cutting them out, that means that they were connected to circulation, there was blood flow before they were doing the harvesting procedure. So that means that the hearts of these infants were beating while they were delivered. They were delivered alive in either the labor induction procedures described in the application or in an intact B&E, which would be a partial birth abortion under federal law. So these are either partial birth abortions or straight up infanticide happening at Pittsburgh, where they're delivering the babies alive, and the cause of death is when they cut the kidneys out of them. This is absolutely sick and depraved. This is sadly not new. There have been whistleblower reports to the Pennsylvania legislature since the 1970s of whistleblowers from Pittsburgh coming out and saying they were packing live fetuses on ice and shipping them off to laboratories. Live fetal experimentation has been a thing at Pittsburgh for many, many decades. It's completely sick and depraved. It needs to be exposed. They need to be accountable for it, and people are starting to call for that today. So it's very important that your listeners be aware of it and let their representatives know they want full accountability for the University of Pittsburgh. People should be fired, there should be defundings, and there should be criminal charges for this Kermit Gosnell level activity that is happening, sadly, on the western side of Pennsylvania as well.
Well, let me tell you something, David. I don't watch local news anymore. I used to work in it for a long time because I think it stinks, and I don't think they do stories that they should be doing, and they do. They spend most of their time talking about fires and vacant buildings and crime reports and things like that. This story, as far as I know, has gotten zero attention from the local TV news outlets. Zero. Now, I can't be 100% sure about that, but I'm pretty sure it's gotten zero attention. Put it this way. It should be the biggest story in town right now, and it ain't that, for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's the same problem as the Kermit Gosnell case in Philadelphia from 10 years ago. Good people knew what Kermit Gosnell was doing in his clinic, how he was maiming women, how he was abusing his patients, how he was delivering late-term babies alive and then killing them after they were born by stabbing their necks with surgical scissors. It's the same kind of thing that's happening that's documented as being part of these research programs at the University of Pittsburgh. People know about this. People who know about it need to speak up. The people who are responsible for enforcing the law, both state and federal, need to release the information they have and act on it to have justice under the law and accountability for the abuse of patients and for the partial birth abortions and straight up infanticide of at least some of the fetuses subject to experimentation. By the way, also similar to the Kermit Gosnell case in Philadelphia, the grant applications for this program at the University of Pittsburgh explicitly says that they have racial quotas for the number of black women and minority babies who have to be harvested from for this program. You know, Allegheny County, from what I can tell from the demographics, is about 80% white and only 13% black. Pitt says in their grant application that they want only 50% white women and white babies, and they want 50% to come from racial minorities. So they are grossly disproportionately targeting racial minorities for these experimentation programs. Same way that Kermit Gosnell showed a special disregard for his minority patients in Philadelphia.
What would be the purpose of that, do you suppose, for Pitt to do that, to target, would it be part of the study of the differences between black babies and white babies, or what? I mean, what would be their motivation for that?
Yeah, so the University of Pittsburgh is trying to defend themselves by saying, well, the diseases that we're trying to study are more prevalent among the African American and Latino communities, and so that's why we need more abortions from them to study it. In my opinion, that's a completely racist justification, and it only proves it illustrates the problem that in fetal experimentation, the burden of having abortions and providing late-term babies for their body parts for experiments is being disproportionately put on minority communities. That is, hello, Pittsburgh, I've heard, is a pretty woke city. That's systemic racism right there, because we're not just talking about taking a test kind of study or a blood draw even or something like that. We're talking about abortions. We're talking about a life or death decision that is going to change people's lives forever. And Pitt is saying, because your race is sicker, we need more of your babies to be aborted so that we can do our experiments. I think it's absolutely disgusting, and they should be ashamed of themselves.
We're talking to David Daleiden. He's the founder of the Center for Medical Progress, and it's a story, the headline for which is University, meaning Pitt, admits harvesting kidneys from unborn babies while their hearts are still beating. David, I called Pitt to see if I could get somebody on to talk about it. I knew they weren't going to provide anybody. I knew that I'd get a statement, and I'll read you the statement that I got, okay? These irresponsible accusations are completely false. As we have repeatedly noted, the University of Pittsburgh, you can stop me whenever you want, by the way. As we have repeatedly noted, the University of Pittsburgh does not perform medical procedures and is not part of the tissue collection process. All of the university's research is closely supervised to ensure compliance with strict and rigorous federal and state laws and regulations. This grant supported research to find new therapies for diseases of the kidneys, bladder, and urinary systems, which are a leading cause of organ failure. By providing a central hub for researchers across the country, this program allowed scientists across the country to access tissue necessary to tackle this growing public health concern.
Yeah, so this is the typical spin from the University of Pittsburgh. Whenever they are called on these questions, they want to say, "Oh, we're not responsible for the medical procedures. We're not responsible for the research." So they can't answer questions about when do these babies die, how do they die, how are they getting the body parts, and yet at the same time they want to cloak themselves and wrap themselves in the alleged glory and honor of the scientific research that they think that they're doing. So which is it? Can they comment on the research or can they not? Can they comment on, apparently, Pitt's supposed to be a great medical school. Can they comment on what their doctors are doing behind closed doors there, or can they not? By the way, 2 days ago, the previous statement that they released is the one where they said ischemia, loss of blood supply to the organs, doesn't happen until after they're cut out of the fetuses. That's what they said 2 days ago. Describing the way that the harvesting procedures took place. And then today they're coming out with a statement saying, "Oh, we're not responsible for the research. We're not responsible for the medical practice, so we don't know." So which is it? Do they know or do they not? Were they telling the truth yesterday or are they telling the truth today? I think they need to be put under oath and ask these questions seriously.
I think Pitt is happy to claim that they're responsible for Jonas Salk. And for other great medical advances that have been made by the University of Pittsburgh, they seem to be they seem to be happy to claim.
Yep. They should be. If it's true, they should be just as proud to stand up and defend what their scientists are doing with taxpayer funding right now in the Good Map program.
Now, according to your story, Pitt has become the quote unquote tissue hub, and I think they use the word hub in this statement. They say that this program allows scientists across the state. But anyway, you referred to it, or it's referred to in the story as the tissue hub for aborted baby parts. I mean, what does that mean? I mean, I know what a hub is, but how much of a hub is it?
Yeah, it means exactly what it sounds like, a shipping hub, a distribution hub, like a FedEx hub, except not for boxes of birthday presents or household appliances or anything like that, but for boxes of aborted baby body parts. The University of Pittsburgh's Good Map program was the idea they came up with it about 6 years ago now. It was specifically, it says in the grant application, to be a mass distribution hub for aborted fetal kidneys and bladders and other organs all across the country. They advertised in the grant application that not only had they been doing this for decades prior, that they've had a big fetal tissue harvesting operation at the University of Pittsburgh, but they said that they actually felt like they were not taking full advantage of the abortion supply that they have at the University of Pittsburgh and in the city of Pittsburgh. And so they said that they felt that their collections of baby body parts could be, quote, significantly ramped up. Talk about wanting to ramp up the harvesting of baby parts for this hub that they want to operate. The University of Pittsburgh itself, I think a lot of people, a lot of local people in Western Pennsylvania don't realize this. Sadly, it has been a huge training hub for abortion, for late-term abortion in particular, like 5, 6, 7 months, for many decades at this point. Planned Parenthood, the local Planned Parenthood in Pittsburgh, is very commingled and very intricately tied with the University of Pittsburgh Medical School. The Planned Parenthood abortion providers are on staff at the OBGYN department at the University of Pittsburgh, and they run one of Planned Parenthood's biggest abortion training programs there, which has been exporting some of the scariest Planned Parenthood late-term abortion doctors across the country, in Southern California, where I'm from, in Houston, and other places. So it's very sad. Not only is Pitt exporting baby body parts across the country, but they're also exporting some of the worst abortion doctors. Yeah,
and I just ask people who are listening, it might be a good idea. Give pick one of the 3 local TV news operations. Give them a call and just call the assignment desk and just ask them if they're aware of the story and why they're not doing it. David, one reason why they may not be doing this story, and this to me is also could be a very big story, is that UPMC, which stands for the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, is a gigantic entity here in Pittsburgh with tremendous influence over everything. And they spend millions of dollars advertising on local TV news. I hope that that's not the reason why we're not seeing much about it.
That would certainly make sense to me, sadly. But the thing is, if UPMC wants to be such a big and prestigious part of the community, they don't need the baby body parts, and they don't need the abortion industry to be this weird little sideshow that they have going on in their business. They should cut them loose, and they should embrace the values of the community. It's the good people of Western Pennsylvania who have made the University of Pittsburgh and made UPMC a big phenomenon for decades in that part of the country. So I think that they should listen to their customers, and if not, the customers should vote with their feet.
I only have a minute left, and you made a reference to Kermit Gosnell earlier. He is now doing life for murder, and you say that this is Gosnell-like that they're doing there. Just to finish up with your last 40 seconds here, that's pretty strong stuff that you're claiming.
Absolutely. What's going on at the University of Pittsburgh and what's been going on for decades with the documented reports of live fetal experimentation and experiments being carried out on born alive infants, it's absolutely disgusting. It's depraved. It's criminal under the Pennsylvania Abortion Control Act, and it should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. And
it's tantamount, at least, to murder, you're saying?
It's infanticide. It's infanticide and partial birth abortion, and both are illegal.
Wow. Hey, I really appreciate you coming on. Thanks for the work you do, David. And it's David Daleiden, and he's the founder of the Center for Medical Progress. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we'll be right back.